Got to get off mute. Although I was always told I was loud, so anyway, I'm Adam Starchild, and I'm going to talk to you about puppetry and what it means to me as a spiritual practice, and how you can transform things into puppets and transform yourself into a puppeteer. And maybe it'll transform you in different ways and unexpected ways, which I will also share today. So you're probably familiar with this kind of puppet. So this is Wembley from a television show from the 1990s called Fraggle Rock. So see, Wembley's just inanimate when he's down here, and then he becomes animated. And in the show later, Wembley's going to sing with me. So I got started in puppeteering when I was a university student, and I was working at a public library and in the children's section, and I got to do the puppet shows at the library. And I encountered a whole world that I had no idea existed before then, and I've been all over the place doing puppet shows. We had when I worked at the library, we had a traveling puppet show. I would go on the subway here in Toronto with my big curtain rod and the puppet stage on my back. That was quite a sight. People would get out of my way when I got onto the subway train. And I would go all over Toronto, all the different libraries in Toronto, and myself and others. There were a troop of 4, and we would put puppet shows on at different libraries all over the city of Toronto, and it was transformative. And I've always done puppet shows. In my professional life, I am a minister in the United Church of Canada. Yeah, represent the United Church of Canada, and I've always used puppets in my congregations, and so puppets have always been a part of my life. And over the years, it's become harder and harder to get puppets, it's really interesting that puppets, you can't find them very readily. You can always find stuffed animals, but it's very hard to find puppets. So then I started to think, well, I have to make my own. But I just wanted, before I do that part, because I'm going to use the scissors, I just wanted to give you a little history of puppetry. It's an ancient art. Aristotle mentioned it in his One Soul. Ancient puppetry was called thauma, which is the Greek word for marvel. So thauma is the wonder experienced at things which the viewer cannot comprehend, things which seem impossible or defy expectations. Puppets have the potential to cause thauma because they are inanimate objects, and yet they appear to move as living beings. Thauma generated due to imitation characterizes not only puppet shows, but automa, mime, and pantomime. Thauma was central function of ancient Greek religion. For Aristotle, the intellectual inquiry begins with thauma. Aristotle claimed that humans began to philosophize by experiencing thauma at that which they did not understand. So puppetry as marvel, not the superhero marvels, but wonder and in connection with the divine. And puppetry has always been for me a connection with the divine spirit without and within myself. And so as I was saying, it's hard to find puppets. So I started to create my own puppets using stuffed animals. This was a stuffed animal, and it's now a puppet. So I'm going to show you how to do that with these two in a moment. But I wanted to share something incredibly personal that's only happened in the last few days. You're experiencing the last performance of Adam Starchild. Adam Starchild is being retired because a new identity is being birthed within me, and Lael is crying out to be birthed. Lael means belonging to God, so Lael Hoyden is the new name. And Hoyden is the slang from the 16th century for dyke. So, Adam Starchild will be no more after today, and Lael Hoyden will be the new. And that's because of this summit. Because of what I've experienced here and heard and felt and encountered, that this has been, and I'm about to cry, this has been birthed into life. So thank you all for being a part of birthing something new. Okay, let's get to slashing puppets. So when you're finding a stuffed animal to create into a puppet, you need to first check out their legs or arms to see if they are attached or if they're open. This one I didn't check because they're attached, they're not open, so I can't manipulate the legs on this one, but this one is open. You should watch me in a toy store squeezing all the animals. It's so much fun. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. Oh yeah, that one. So then you go in the bottom of the puppet, well, the animal, stab it. It's a good way to get your aggression out too. You know, you're encountering somebody, somebody's frustrating you. If you're a minister, you might want to do this in a church count board meeting, or, when you're meeting with your boss or something, I used to have, when I was in active ministry, I used to have Play-Doh under the table at board meetings, and I squish it all the way through the meeting. Yep, it's beads. I stabbed a little too much. We'll just leave the guts to the side. I'll pick up the rest of the guts later. And then you take out the other parts of the guts. It's kind of like preparing a turkey for Thanksgiving. Might not be as tasty though. Then you get as much stuffing out as is comfortable for your hand. And then you have a puppet. Now, if you wanted to do a finger puppet. No, it's not where we're coming. Thank you, Michelle. It's just a little guts. It's okay. There we go. If you wanted to do a finger puppet, you just go through the same area, and you'll be able to stick your finger right into the body. And then you can create a finger puppet. So you stab it. Are you okay?
I love stuffed animals.
Okay, then I won't do that. Well, I mean, it's still like it's still very cute. It's still very cuddly. It's been transformed.
Yes. Yeah, we're changing.
It's not. It's a butterfly. Yeah, so it's a butterfly. It's kind of into that. Yes. Yeah. So the most ancient form of puppetry was shadow puppetry. So they would have paper puppets, and then you would have a light, and you'd create shadow. Those were the first ones back in China, and way back, where the first puppets were shadow puppets, and this is what you're going to create during the interactive part of our time together. And so, yeah. And so, yeah, I planned this thinking that we were going to go right into that practice, but yeah. So this is what you're going to create. So you could create a shadow puppet. I'm going to put the light here and see if you can make it see a shadow. What was the plan? But I'm okay with. I think she's okay. Does anybody have any questions about puppetry? Yeah, Adam.
Just a little, like, sorry.
We need the microphone so people on live stream can hear you.
Test. Hi, everyone. Disco Jesus Windsor from Windsor, Ontario. Just a light question, but just in the thought of sewing and inspecting, like you said, making sure, can I transform this into what I want to do with it? Do you try and go after any puppet to be that might already have a zipper? Do you like to cut with the seam? Do you kind of cut smaller than bigger because you realize it keeps it better on your hand? Like, are the little things that you take us into your process to make sure that the puppet's not constantly falling off your hand, or it's not too tight? You go with the seam, against the seam, zipper, no zipper.
It depends on the size of the animal, whether you cut on the seam or not. Like if it's a bigger stuffed animal, it's often better to go in the back where there's a seam and do it that way. And yeah, the way you want to make sure when you're making the puppet is the least amount of damage to the integrity of what the actual animal or character looks like, so that you can still see how it looks, because you don't want to make it completely malformed. But it needs to be also, the hole needs to be big enough for your hand. Because if you have a too small hand, too small hole for your hand will cramp really quickly. I love Wembley, but there is times when my hand starts to cramp with Wembley because it's really tight up here, because it was made for a child. And so for me to put my hand in here, it cramps up really quickly. It's starting to cramp right now. It's cutting off my hand right here. But in order to make Wembley talk, I have to be way up here. So you have to have that into consideration as well when you are taking whatever animal you're taking or character you're taking to create your puppet. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah.
Besides Wembley, what's your favorite character that is a puppet?
So I have a puppet of the animal, the Muppet, which I got when I was 18. That my mother was so happy to get me. But he's falling apart. Otherwise, I would have brought him, because his eyebrows go up and down, and that part is starting to crack. So that's why he's very carefully on a chair and doesn't go anywhere, because he's falling apart. But he's my favorite. I love Animal because he's got these really long arms and the eyebrows. You can make him really mad or happy or sad or scared, or do the up and down of the eyebrows. So he's my favorite. Animal's my favorite. But I also have Mobley from Fraggle Rock. I love Fraggle Rock. It was one of my favorites. I have a rat that I got in England whose name is Rupert. I got him at Shakespeare's Globe because of the plague and rats. Yeah. Yes, Michelle.
Have you ever incorporated puppetry into your ministry, whether it was as a minister in church
Yeah.
or in the activities of your community? And can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I've always used puppetry in my ministry, and I've used them in different ways. I bought a monster puppet at the One of a Kind show, and I had the congregation name the puppet. His name is Murphy. Murphy, yeah. And so the congregation named Murphy. So I've used puppets for children's time. I've used them in my sermons. I've had dialogues with puppets in my sermons. It was an anniversary Sunday in one of the churches I was in, and I was able to create an image of the very first minister that they had, because they had a photograph of the minister, and so I had a dialogue with that minister who was a puppet, and so we did the sermon that way, and was able to tell the history. The archivist of the church loved it. She was so excited that I did that. She was happy to give me any research, but it really helped the congregation engage with their history to have it. It's amazing to see grown, serious adults become not serious adults when you bring out a puppet, and they engage in the divine and engage in the spirit in a way that nothing else engages them. It's almost like it gives them permission to be childlike. And so I've used it for intergenerationals. I've used it at Vacation Bible School, day camp. I've even been used to use it on a youth retreat. Kids created their own puppets on a youth retreat. So yeah, so different things. Yeah. And we have a question down here. Sean's getting his exercise today. Obviously, you're getting your steps in.
So, one of the things that I could check. Yeah, gotta make sure it's on.
Gotta make sure it's on.
Test it. Ooh, there we go. So, out of the puppets that you might have seen like throughout the history, what was the biggest puppet that you have, and what would be your dream puppet of getting next?
The biggest puppet I have, is a dragon named Gabriel that I use on Advent, and for Advent 1. So that's the biggest puppet I have. He's a full body dragon where the head is the only part that works, that moves. Everything else is stuffed. But he has a really tiny hole, so I don't use him I only use him Advent 1 because it hurts my hand by the end of the service. And what is my dream puppet? My dream puppet is a puppet that I was going to buy, but my mother said, no, wait. And to this day, and I was like 17 at the time, no, 15 at the time. And it was a puppet of Gonzo from the Muppet Show. And it was a marionette of Gonzo from the Puppet Show. Full body, this size, and I still want that. Every time I go to England, I look for it. Because it was in London, and we didn't get it because we had just arrived in London, and Mom said, wait and see if there's something better. And by the time we got back to London, it was gone. So that one I've always dreamt about having. So yeah. As you can probably tell, Jim Henson is one of my heroes. And I remember going the first time I went to England, when I was 15 with my parents. There was a display of the Hobbit movie, which Jim Henson had worked on. It was an old Hobbit movie, and there was an actual Frodo Muppet that Jim Henson had made, and I remember seeing it in a glass case at Fortnum and Mason's, and I just loved it. And Jim Henson has always been an inspiration to me, and I've read everything about Jim Henson, watched everything about Jim Henson, because his process and who he is. For him, it was the spirituality of puppetry, and so he's a huge idol of mine. So, any other questions? No. Yeah, it's Michelle.
My favorite part is that you waited until Sean got all the way back.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Can you speak to your hopes for puppetry and spirituality?
Ooh, well, puppetry is it can be a political act. And November 5th is Guy Fawkes Day, which always has a puppet of the Guy Fawkes, Penny for the Guy. So I will be using a puppet on that day, wherever I can. And so my hope for puppetry and spirituality is that it will be seen as a spiritual act, spiritual practice. It's seen as kids play. It's not taken as meaningful as it can be. It's lost that meaning. It had that meaning in ancient times, but it's lost that. I blame Punch and Judy for that. And so my hope is that it will reclaim its former wonder, its former thama, because it's lost that at the moment. So, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Oh.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Violet.
Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Liz.
From Idaho. I know you've heard that a lot this weekend. I was just thinking of a comment and I was just kind of, I don't know, I was just pondering, but I often identify spirituality as anything that lifts me. It's what animates my body and causes me to show up in the world in the way that I do. And I just found it interesting that like you're animating a creature into how it's going to exist and behave. And I guess I wondered, not that I think it's problematic to think that like we're puppets of God or whatever, but I'm curious if, I don't know, it just seemed like there was an interesting connection there that was coming to mind.
Yeah, I think, like, I believe everything in the world is spiritual. So that's an interesting thought of being puppets of God. Perhaps we are. But the only thing that makes me problematic for me about that is that you manipulate a puppet to do, and I don't want to think of God as manipulating us. But I certainly feel like maybe it's the puppet creator. So when you create the puppet and you breathe life into the puppet, that would be the spirituality of puppetry in us. And so it's, yeah, so that's where I would see it, rather than being manipulated by God, because I don't ever think of God as manipulating. That's not a God that I believe in, but I do believe in a God that breathes in life. I mean, I have a tattoo on my foot of a pigeon, which is the Aramaic word for pigeon and dove are the same. So for me, the pigeon is the Holy Spirit because they're scrappy, and for me, the Holy Spirit's always been scrappy. But there's a comma at the foot of the pigeon because God is still speaking, and so God is still breathing life into us the way when we create, and God is constantly creating. In the New Creed in the United Church of Canada, there's a line: "Who is God who has created and is creating." And I always think of the word, the name for God is I am in our translation, but in the original Hebrew, it's I am becoming. And so God is constantly becoming more in us. And we are an expression of God's creation and what God is becoming in the world. And I think in this time of our lives, what is going to happen in the United States on Tuesday, and what is happening in Palestine, and what is happening in Ukraine, now more than ever, we need this creation that's here this weekend, that we do, all of us in the world. Drag and the spirituality of it is what the world needs now more than ever. So, yeah, yeah.
The tables are set up for.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, so in each box, in each of the papers, there's things you can. There's always glitter. There's things you can do. I can bring you some foam, fun foam you can create. There's feathers there. There's glitter horns, and then the popsicle sticks. You can glue a popsicle stick so that you have your puppet, so that the unicorn can run. Go and create your unicorns. Yay.
Okay.
And can you mute me from here?
Yeah, I can mute you from here,
Perfect. Good. I think that's good. I can hear myself.
Yes. Yeah, let me just hear on my. Okay, come on.
Hello, hello. Testing, testing. Thanks for having us. Great weekend.
That's great.
What's the time frame for the remainder of the day? And is there a time when we expect other folks?
about 15 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, neighbor. That's so good. That's so good. I'm just going to do a little talk about when I was growing up. I was a Presbyterian minister. Oh, come on. Stop it. You're so good. You're so good. I'm going to cry. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk. Exactly. I'm going to talk. Exactly. I'm going to come in from the side too, actually. Yeah, open the door and come in from the side. And then I'm going to do a little talk about what Mr. Rogers meant to me. And then I'm going to take off my boots and my pants and my cardigan and put on the heels and the jacket like a cover-up and change into the actual number. And then I'll just nod. Yeah, when I'm ready to start going. Oh, this is going to be so good. It's kind of worked out, actually. Yeah. Ben, is 2:30? Is that kind of late for you? Are you still okay? Okay. Yeah. What does that mean? What part are you at? Or is it the whole thing?